Welcome back to Judo Highlights. The wait is over, we're back into it. The first Grand Slam of 2025 and the first tournament where the new rules are in place. So we're going to talk about that a lot in this video, but before that, just a shout out to the channel members. I hope you guys are enjoying the Judo Wiki. It's got a lot of great details in there. Really hope it helps people improve their game. Now just a couple of random little talking points. So if you have a look on Judo TV now, they've got the side of the technique. It says right or left, which is kind of interesting. Obviously this one here, not a tomoe nage, just an example. And then one more thing before we get into the results. Jack Yonezuka competes for the USA. Now the next Olympics is going to be in the USA. There's going to be a lot of focus. Jack, I mean, he's got years to prepare, but I think he's training in America right now, and I think he needs to get out as soon as possible. Now, Japan is so cheap. His last name's Yonezuka. I'm not sure if he can speak Japanese or not, but he just needs to come here. I'm not sort of sure what kind of funding or financial position he is in, but if I was him, that's exactly what I would do. I would get out of America as soon as possible and live in Japan as much as possible heading into the Olympics. But anyway, I'm sure he's got a plan. I'm sure they're thinking about it a lot. I just hope he can prepare to the best of his abilities going into the Olympics, home country and all. So anyway, moving along, we'll talk about all the little differences in the rules at the end of this video. But just to begin, just my overall impressions of what has changed. And first, it's amazing how people were just able to go back to putting their heads on the tatami. So it's great to see this sort of stuff again. I've always thought that these guys are in control of the situation, they know what they're doing with their bodies, and they're comfortable doing these sorts of things. So it's great that we're allowing it to happen again. Now the next point, the next big change is you really have to just kind of get used to the scoreboard again of seeing all the U-calls on the board. Now personally, I'm not sure if I like the U-call at the moment. Two things are going to happen. One, we're going to see lots of scores, or two, we're going to see people lose like this, where it's just a brief touch on the side. Here's another look at it from a different angle. And this does make me just feel a little bit worried, because these sorts of sacrifice throws, it's quite easy to get people just to go on their side like this. And I would much prefer that people kind of go for big throws instead of, you know, getting a U-call with something small like this and then just staying ahead on the scoreboard. So just personally, I did like the Wazari Ippon only system, seeing just big throws like this. I do think a new meta might kind of evolve where people are just doing enough to just get people on the side briefly, especially now that the leg is considered in the scoring criteria for U-call. Here's an example. So Ahadov at under 73, he won taking gold, and this is an earlier match. Nice Ashibarai here. And that was a U-call score, so blue landing on his bum. And then the clock burned out and Ahadov obviously ahead with a U-call score. But it does make you think, if there was no U-call score in that example, would something more exciting happen? You know, two guys don't have a point. Maybe something like this is going to develop a little bit later in the contest. I'm still undecided on the U-call right now. But anyway, that's just my opinion. So we'll stick with Ahadov for a little bit more. Here's another U-call score from him with the Kochi. Now in the final, it was Ahadov against Jakova. And these two, they had a pretty exciting lead up into the gold medal contest, but this contest, they kind of cancelled each other out a little bit, went into golden score, and then finally Jakova, he gets that third Shido. Now I wish the referees would just kind of leave people alone and let them celebrate. Ahadov, he is an incredible competitor, but he doesn't have a lot of gold medals to his name, so this one definitely meant a lot to him. Now Jakova, he had a sensational day. Probably one of the best ippons came from him, and this is against Uchimura from Japan. Now Uchimura, he's known for his kochigake, and here he is, he tries to get it going, but Jakova counters it perfectly. I guess it is a sasai. Have a look at the grip on the belt. Really helps him just control the situation, and then rotate him over with that grip around the tricep as well. And he also took out Lombardo, and this is in the semi-final. A good sumigaishi here. And check out this Uchimata from Jakova as well. Always knew he had a good Uchimata, but he just seems so physically strong, and He's always given people lots of problems.
Well, if I'm right,
Now Lombardo, he ended up facing Gobert in the bronze medal contest. And this was a really good one to see. Both guys very technical. Really impressed with Gobert, to be honest. Definitely recently really upping his game. And he gets Lombardo here with his technique, the kataguruma. And I have said this in the past, sometimes people, they're kind of weak to their tokui waza. And they gave Lombardo a U-call for this. And it did take them a little bit of time to kind of have a look at it, go to the video referee. So I think that's going to be a problem. Just going forward a little bit, just deciding, is it a U-call, is it a wazari? Which, in my opinion, kind of breaks up the flow of the action a little bit. So great result for Gobert, and have a look at this throw from earlier on. Absolutely sensational. Not sure exactly what it is, but the French team, they do love their makikomis, especially haraigoshi makikomi. Bit of a Teddy Renier influence, maybe. In the other bronze medal contest, I'm not sure how to pronounce this person's name, Vantidze from Portugal. Now, Mamadaliev, he does well to try to defend this, but this is a wazari now under the current rule set. Rolling over the elbows like that. Really going to have to just revise the rules again. So much has changed. Now, just going back to Gobert, he was up against Shavdar Toashvili. Shavdar Toashvili gets a U-call for that score there. And then Gobert, he comes back with a throw of his own. Haraigoshi makikomi. And then he gets one more. Beautiful Uchimata. Have a look at that. And the celebration as well. The crowd loves it. Gobert loves it. The only person who doesn't love it is the referee. Just leave him alone. Now Shavdar Toashvili, I mean, he had a good throw here, but I think his best days are behind him. And we'll move down to under 60 now. Now this is the final, Sekimoto against Picard. And Picard really upped his game. He's slowly turning from a junior into one of the seniors. And this was a brilliant kind of combination here into the Uchimata. Now Sekimoto, he comes back, and we're going to have a look at some highlights from him in a minute. But Picard does so well to turn out of this throw. Here he comes across for the Serio Toshi. Brilliant defense from Picard. And then he even gets another score here. Just turns the Serio Nage into something. And another wazari. And he gets it. The celebration. Brilliant celebration. Hands up. Fist pump. Let's do it. Honestly, I just think the athletes should ignore the referees when they tell them to calm down. It's so silly. Just one last highlight from Picard before we look at Sekimoto. Have a look at this. I mean, the defense and the combination of attacks really developing into a really high-level judoka. That was a great Seoinage too. So excited to see more of Picard. Now Sekimoto, I mean, he had a great day. He's still a little bit green to this environment, so to go all the way to the final, go home with the silver medal is a great result for him. And I mean, have a look at these throws. He is a highlight machine at under 60. Really just goes for it. Have a look at this. And so he's really going to thrive in this environment where there are U-calls. Definitely had one of the best ippons of the day. Not this one, but coming up after this one. But I mean, have a look at that. The agility, to split the legs like that. So explosive. Serio Toshi, have a look at that. Incredible. Now this next one, I'm going to call it a Kochi Makikomi because he does really just wrap himself in there. Have a look at this Kochi. Doesn't get better than that. That's absolutely amazing. So Sekimoto, definitely want to see him more and more. Definitely a highlight machine. So the bronze medals, we'll talk about those now at under 60. And we had Jean versus Verstraeten. And have a look at this big Uranage from Jean. Verstraeten just took his foot off the gas a little bit there. Should have been a little bit more active. Next up, we'll talk about under 66. Buba versus Pashayev in the final. And Buba, just a bit of a mistake here. Goes for the Haraigoshi, gets countered by Pashayev. And Buba wasn't the only Frenchman that Pashayev countered and got a win against. Here he is. doing the same thing that Jakova did, that Sasai against the Kochi. Here are a couple of throws from Buba. Took out Margvelashvili earlier on. Now, Margvelashvili, I mean, he's getting up there in age too, under 66 for Georgia. Who's going to be next? It's going to be interesting. Now, Chupanov, one of my favorites, he was up against Margvelashvili in the bronze medal contest. And unfortunately, he did lose this. Tried to go for broke here with a U-call down. So I guess this is probably one of the positives of the U-call score. You know, people behind taking a little bit more risk in their attacks. And this is a great example here. These two, Chupanov versus Nozadze. Just both of them going back and forth, both of them getting kind of Wazaris and U-calls here. You can see Nozadze with 2 U-call scores, and then Chupanov, he comes along, gets a Wazari. So it is a little bit more exciting, especially if you're kind of following the scoreboard and seeing people going back and forth with the scores. Now just a few more highlights here from Pashayev and Lombardo before we get into the women's results. And I gotta say, Omori, she pulled out a really nice piece of newaza, which I'll get to in a second. But first, really nice Seoi Otoshi here. Maybe even a Tai Otoshi. And a couple of throws from Lombardo. There's that trademark Kataguruma of his. Now, what do you guys think? I think Lombardo looks a little bit chubby here. He's definitely grown into the weight division at under 73. Alright, so we'll start with under 52, and Omori, she won, taking gold. But have a look at this newaza sequence here, taking out Krasniki of all people. Now, I'm not exactly sure if we have sort of judo terminology for this, but I think it's a wrestling move, a cradle, potentially. So this was really nice to see. Omori, I really want to see her versus Abe Uta, because she's definitely showing that she has the skills to beat everyone else in the weight class. Now the gold medal contest was really boring. Her against Fujishiro ended up being decided by Shiro. Those two have fought a number of times, and Fujishiro, she needs to figure out something to beat Omori. Under 48, we had Kondo taking out Bukli in the newaza. Of course, the Japanese women's team has a really strong base in newaza. And if you just notice the clock here, 5 seconds for the U-call. So in golden score, they automatically cut off the timer at 5, which is nice and smooth. Sometimes, you know, you see the clock just run on too long and it's just kind of awkward. So it's good that they've cleaned up that system a little bit. Now Koga, she lost to Bukli. I showed you guys that earlier on, that U-call. And this was a bronze medal contest, and this was quite interesting. So watch Martinez, she gets up from this, and then it looks like she kind of wants to circle Koga, but Koga says, no, we're not going to circle, we're not going to bounce up and down. And the cameraman wasn't ready for it, so I'll show you the other angle. So Koga, I mean, she looks like a nice person, but on the tatami, she will take every opportunity to get a win over you. And of course, you got to be ready at all times. Now the other bronze medal went to Bubblefath. She won her contest by Shido, but this is a highlight from earlier on. Back up to under 52 now, and we talked about Omori. Krasniki, after that loss, went through into the bronze medal contest. Gets a counter against Bishrelt here. I wish someone, does anyone know anything about the UAE team? Seems like they just kind of collect a bunch of people, but where do they train? What do they do? Do they get paid? Someone needs to let me know. Now, lastly, we'll go up to under 57 before we talk about the rule changes. Fawaz, really incredible throw here. Similar to that counter from Zhakova. That's how you do it if you just want to attack and initiate it yourself. So Velozzi in the bronze medal contest gets a score here against Lupatiliani. Someone needs to let me know. Now, lastly, we'll go up to under 57 before we talk about the rule changes. Fawaz, really incredible throw here. Similar to that counter from Zhakova. That's how you do it if you just want to attack and initiate it yourself. So Velozzi in the bronze medal contest gets a score here against Lupitiliani. Now was already on the board because 10 seconds into the newaza, and they do give her the Yuko score for the throw as well. And Velozzi, she did not stop here. Another score against Lupitiliani. And Lupitiliani, she's got a lot of responsibility. She's a crucial part of the Georgian team, especially when it comes to the team events. And then in the other bronze medal contest, we had Fuchida. She gets the hold down against Mokhtar here. Now, I did say that I would talk about the rules in a little bit more detail at the end of the video, but this video is getting pretty long right about now. So I'll put in the description, there is a